Well, guys, thanks for coming out. We're the Charlotte Business Group, Lake Norman. My day job, the director of sales for the IT company Entec Systems that provides IT to the small to mid market. So we're happy to host this and to sponsor it as well. But as it relates to the Charlotte Business Group, Lake Norman, of course, you're all familiar with the group. We're instituting a seasonal speaker series where we'll have an expert on some element of small business or personal growth come out and give a talk. Vijay Kailash is a good friend of mine. He worked in corporate investment banking for a period of time, most of his career, and now has decided to venture off using those strategies to create a hedge fund. Fund number one is under Kailash Capital. And so he is here to talk about the 9 secrets the wealthy know about money that the middle class don't. With that, Vijay Kailash.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Connor. Well, first of all, thanks for hosting us at Entec. So, setting up all the lunch and everything. So, everyone, give Connor a round of applause too. Awesome. Well, as Connor said, I am Vijay Kailash. I worked in investment management for a few years, and then I left and started my own hedge fund. So my background is finance, managing money, and just decided to venture off. So the reason why I got so, passionate about money is back in middle school, my parents were telling me, hey, do well in school so you could have good habits so you can do better in high school. So then hopefully you could get into a good university. So then hopefully get a good job. And I'm just like, so many steps. Like, what's the ultimate goal? The good job equals good money, right? So I'm just like, I'm lazy. I'm in middle school and I'm like, why not just learn about money and how it works? And so I went to college, I studied finance and worked in investment management, got my CFA. So I have a very strong technical finance background, but on the side I was always learning the personal finance side because they don't go hand in hand. And so that's kind of just what my background is. And I know we did start about 15 minutes a little later, but if you have questions, feel free to raise your hand. Let's make it a little interactive, make it more fun. But let's get started. First thing, everything here is purely just for educational purposes. I'm not selling you anything, and it's just for education, not advice. All right. Well, have you guys played this game? Would you rather? All right. So I'm going to put up 2 different options. Raise your hand, or put a 1 up if you'd rather do 1, and then 2 if you'd rather do 2. All right. So would you rather get paid $1 million a month? I like that already. I do it. Right. There we go. Or would you rather get paid with a magic penny, which doubles in value every single day for 30 days? Okay. Everyone's already like 2 or peace. I don't know. But okay, I'm going to pick one of you. Okay, Tinny, 1. Tell me why.
Well, $1 million per month, depending on when it, how it comes in, I can put it to work much faster than a compounding.
So how much do you think you can return on $1 million? Just for hypothetical.
Conservatively?
Yeah.
15%.
15%. Okay. So let's just say that. So you'll have 1.15 million, or 15% of $1 million. Perfect. Why did someone say 2?
Penny doubling every day for 30 days is well over $1 million.
Okay. Well, you probably. Oh, that's good. All right. So let's go through this. So day 1 through 10, you go to work, you work 8 hours a day, and then you come back and you're like, I have a penny. What's the point of this? Do this again for 10 days, and after 80 hours, you have enough money to almost buy some Chipotle. Yeah, $5, right? And so you're like, Vijay, this is the worst. Why didn't I just choose the $1 million? Well, day 11 through 20, as you're working more and more, around day 16, you're like, okay, I'm making about $300 a day. My penny is worth that much, and now you're a little bit, okay, it's not as bad. I still wish I had $1 million. This one gets interesting. Day 21, 10,000, then 20,000, 40,000, all the way down day 30, 5.3 million. And is 5.3 million more than 15% on $1 million?
Can I change?
But that's exactly it, right? So this is one of the biggest concepts in finance, is compound interest. And when you invest, you don't see anything the first X amount of time, but you get the major returns at the very end. So this is why it's so important to get started early, because when you get started earlier, you have more time for your money to grow. Because you can never get to day 30 without first getting through the first 25 days, right? And so that's one of the major keys. So topics for today's presentation, we're going to go through secrets 1 through 9. And then I'm going to end with 3 actionable steps you guys can take, so that way you can utilize it and you have something concrete after you leave from today. So let's get secret 1, delayed gratification. Has anyone heard of the marshmallow experiment? Sean, you're nodding your head. Could you tell us what it is?
So, just like your picture shows, put a marshmallow out, and then you leave the room and tell your child, don't eat it. If I come back and you don't eat it, I'll give you more, or you can have the marshmallow, and then see what happens.
That's exactly it. So the study was actually conducted in the 60s, and it got released in 1972. But basically, there's a marshmallow in front of a child. If they want, they could eat it. But if they don't eat it, basically after 15 minutes, the adult comes back with another marshmallow, and the kid, basically, they delayed their gratification. Now they have 2 marshmallows. And so the cool thing about this study is that it showed that the kids who delayed their gratification are doing significantly better in multiple areas of life, such as scoring higher on SAT scores, lower levels of substance abuse, lower likelihood of obesity, better responses to stress, and better social skills, and just basically overall better at life in multiple different aspects. So the takeaway here is, connecting this to a financial aspect, is people who delay their gratification are able to harvest their crops significantly better than people. Cool, I made $1,000, let me go spend it right now. Instead, if you let it invest, let it grow, you're going to get significantly more out of it. All right, secret number 2. The wealthy think of money like a sport. And those of you who listen to my podcast or watch me on Instagram, you probably know some of it, and that's kind of where these ideas came from. But the middle class aren't even aware that we're playing the sport. So every single person here, every single person in the world is playing a sport called money. It's just that the wealthy know that they're playing, they're intentional about playing, and they know the rules. As for everyone else, you just kind of follow what society tells you, right? Go to school, get a good job, and then no one really tells you how to play because no one knows the rules, right? And so that's kind of what, that's, I guess, the secret of the wealthy. The wealthy know that they're playing, they know the rules, and the goal of the sport is to live life on your own terms. So what does that mean? It means you can leave your 9-to-5 job if you want. You could start a nonprofit if you want. You could spend more time with your family and friends if you want. You could work on higher purpose projects if you want. Basically, it's work because you want to, not because you have to. And that's the goal of the sport of money. And again, every single person is playing it, but most aren't even aware that they're playing it. So like any sport, there's 2 different sides. There's the defense side and there's the offense. The defense is absolutely necessary at first. Imagine soccer, right? There's no way you can win if you're just letting every single goal go by, right? But also, you can't win if you never make a score, and that's where offense comes in. And offense is required to win. So you got to play both very well together. So let's dive in a little bit into the defense side. The defense, absolutely necessary at first. This is relating to saving money, and it's something I personally don't like. I mean, I'm a personal finance guy, but saving money, it just kind of frustrates me. It's like, oh, you're telling me I can't enjoy life right now? And so there's actually a workaround to this, and I'll share that in a little bit. Gosh, clicker doesn't want to work. I love it. 1 second. So some of your largest expenses, so if you're like, VJ, where can I save money? How should I save? Your 4 largest expenses are taxes, housing, transportation, and food. So if you're able to figure out how to cut down on these major expense categories, you can enjoy the little luxuries in life, such as getting guac under Chipotle. And you probably already know that I love Chipotle, but it's little things, right? Or you want to go on a weekend retreat, right? You spend it wasn't that much, but if you want to spend $500, you're okay doing it just because you know that you're saving money in other areas of life. So it's about being intentional where you want to spend your money. So focus on cutting these aggressively. And then but unfortunately, there is a limit on how much you can cut. You still need a place to live. You still need to get from place A to B. You still need to pay your taxes and food, right? Everyone loves food. But there's no limit on how much you can earn. So this is where I personally love to spend my time, the offense side. And this is what my professional background is. This is the investment management side. This is required to win the game. This is when you can actually go score points against your opponent. This is where you make your money work for you. So some places you can invest, and this isn't exhaustive in any means. It's stocks, real estate, and you can start a successful business. There's multiple other ways to invest. I know people are into crypto and NFTs and all that, but these have been proven time and time again for decades or centuries to have been working. So it's a great place to start since the blueprint has literally been written for thousands of years. So you can just start doing that. And we'll actually get into this in a little bit too, a little bit more detail. So the takeaway, by not playing defense and offense well, you'll continue living paycheck to paycheck. So this is absolutely imperative. If you want to get out of that 9-to-5 lifestyle, if you want, again, it's like you can love your job. It's just that this way you're not fearing losing your job because you know you have some other source of income. Okay, so secret number 3. This is something I like to call mindset wealth. I'm sure there's a real name. I just didn't Google it. If you guys know the term, let me know. But this is, so there's mindset wealth and then there's actual wealth. And mindset wealth is significantly more important than actual wealth. So let me explain. If you're broke, as in, or let's just say you're broke, but you have a wealthy mindset, inevitably you're going to become wealthy in the long run. For example, college students, right? You just graduate college, you have a ton of student debt, but if you have a wealthy mindset, you're going to gravitate, your actual wealth is going to gravitate to your mindset wealth, and that's just what's going to happen. Now let's flip the equation. Let's say you have a lot of money, but you have a poor mindset, your actual wealth is going to gravitate towards your poor mindset, and you will not become wealthy. Let's look at a few examples. Lottery winners. 70% lose or spend their earnings within 5 years. And a lot of them actually end up in a worse financial situation than they were before they won. Imagine someone gives you $1 million. How is it that they're not wealthy still? Exactly, right? It's their actual wealth will gravitate towards your mindset. Well, they weren't ready to accept that money. Let's look at generational wealth. 70% of families lose their wealth by the second generation. Similarly, 90% lose it by the third generation. Reason is, someone got millions of dollars, but they didn't have the mindset wealth to accept their actual wealth. And the actual wealth will gravitate towards your mindset wealth. We got one more example. Professional athletes. 60% of NBA players go broke within 5 years after retirement. 78% of NFL players face financial distress just 2 years after retirement. Again, you're making millions of dollars. How is it that you can't keep it, right? It's all about the mindset. So that's why the mindset wealth is so much more important than actual wealth. So earning money is not the issue. I know we talked about this a little bit earlier. The issue is lack of planning, education, and execution. So the takeaway, your actual wealth will always gravitate toward your mindset wealth. And I know I'm going kind of fast, but feel free to stop me whenever. Have you guys read Rich Dad Poor Dad?
Yes.
Who here has? Raise your hand. All right, about almost half. So, honestly, best book I've ever read. That was the reason. It was that paradigm shift, almost mindset for me. So, in the book, they mentioned something called the cash flow quadrant. There's 4 different boxes. On the right side, it's blue, and we'll get into that in a second. Top left is employee. Bottom left, self-employed or small business owner. Top right is business owner. Bottom right is investor. So if you are an employee, you have a job. So let's use this as a lawn mowing company. You are employed by a lawn mowing company. If you don't go mow a lawn, you don't get paid. That's how it is. Now self-employed is very similar, but except instead of you being employed, you are the actual business owner. And so if you don't go mow someone else's lawn, you just don't get paid. But the thing is, this is a trap which a lot of entrepreneurs fall into because they're trying to do everything themselves, including myself, right? It's like you need to build systems, and this is a trap. And they think that they're entrepreneurs, but in reality, they just own a job. As in, they don't get paid unless they actually work. Now moving on to the right side, we got business owner. You own a system, and people work for you. Using a lawn mowing company again. If you own a lawn mowing company, you can hire 5 different people to go mow lawns for you. Now, your pay is no longer tied to your time of actually going and mowing lawns. You just have to spend an hour or 2 a week maybe managing them, but you're still getting paid regardless of whether you personally go manage. And of course, you could hire a manager, and as your company grows, you could hire your own CEO, just kind of stand back and you make money. And lastly, we have the I, which is investor. You have $100,000, you invest it with a lawn mowing company, you just sit back, you go to the beach, enjoy life. Every quarter you collect a paycheck. And so the tax laws and the wealthy understand that the right side, the dark blue, is where you want to be. That's where your time is no longer tied to money, as in you can make money without actually dedicating your time. And so a lot of us are on the left side, on the employee side, including myself, but you can also branch into the right side. Basically step in, you could start building a system before you leave your employer. You could start investing before you leave your employer. And it's okay to be in all four. It's just you have to figure out, or you have to see that, hey, the wealthy make their money on the right side. All right, so we're going to look at the cash flow patterns of two different types of people, the middle class and the wealthy, just to compare the two. So the middle class, they're the ones living paycheck to paycheck, and I'll tell you why they feel that way. They're also they have high-paying jobs. They're the ones making six figures, but they're still living paycheck to paycheck. Because they spend all their money on getting nice homes and nice cars, maybe some boats, going on more luxury vacations, whether or not they can afford it. But because they made $10,000 that month, they're like, yeah, sure, let's go spend it all. Just because they feel they earned it. And they did, right? It's just this is just the cash flow pattern. And it's also known as a rat race, where you're kind of stuck in that lifestyle. And they buy liabilities to keep up with the Joneses, as in your neighbor got a new BMW, so you try to one-up them, and you get a new Tesla, and I get it. But if you get laid off, there's no financial cushion, just because all of your money are in assets. So income comes in, they go buy liabilities, and the money just goes out. They don't really buy assets. Now let's look at the cash flow pattern of the wealthy. They make their money from cash flowing assets. They don't fear losing their job because they know that their business or their investments are producing enough income, or at least partial income, where they're like, okay, I have 6 months to a year to not worry about when I'm getting my new job, so I could focus on, so I don't have to be worried about how I'm going to feed myself. And this is the mindset that wealthy have, and if you want to be, and there's a reason you guys are here. So having some mindset which I'd recommend also trying to adopt. Basically, they feed as much as they can into the assets, and the assets pay for their income, or pay for their lifestyle. Basically goes to their income. And we'll go into this in just a little bit deeper. All right, secret number 6, the wealthy understand tax laws. And honestly, when I got started, I'm just like, I hate taxes, like why? But then I realized over 95% of the tax code is written to save you money. So I'm like, by understanding this, you can actually make money by just tax savings. And these tax laws apply to everyone, not just the wealthy. It applies to everyone. But the wealthy understand and they take advantage. And by the way, the whole time I'm saying wealthy, I'm talking about the mindset wealth, not whether or not you actually have the money. That's irrelevant. It's all about your mindset. People who have zero money can still adopt this mindset. And most of the tax benefits benefit the people on the right side of the cash flow quadrant. So the business owners, as well as the investors, and the people who end up paying the most taxes are the E's and S's, the employees and self-employed. So the takeaway here is the wealthy understand tax laws, and they know that it can help save them a lot of money. So they try to prioritize that. All right, secret number 6. Yes?
BJ, you might be going into it, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But so I've been doing my taxes recently, and at least preparing it for the preparer. What are some examples of utilizing the tax laws to your advantage that the wealthy do in this case?
Absolutely. So the wealthy invest in businesses and investments. So if you think of real estate, one of the major write-offs or deductions, something called depreciation. As in, if you buy a $100,000 property, you can deduct that over 27 and a half years. And so even though you're not writing a check for depreciation, you can just use that to offset some of your income. So the difference is, if you're an employee, you make $100, you pay, let's just say 30% in taxes, now you could spend that $70 that's left over. As for a business owner, you make $100, you have $70 worth of expenses, now you only pay taxes on the 30 that's left. You see the difference? So you spend as much as you can to lower your tax bill. And so that could include going on business trips, or just or writing off some of your meals and travel, all that, right? So there's a lot more benefits in that aspect. Yep.
So
Yeah.
I'll just say a quote. I won't say who the quote was from. You can figure it out. But when asked during a presidential debate if not paying any taxes made you un-American, and the response was, no, it made me smart. That's the American way. I mean, it really actually makes you American, because as you're stating, the tax code is written. We are in a free enterprise society. I'm like, we forget what we're in. So like, that's America.
Yeah.
Now, of course, I didn't agree with, and I'm not aligning myself per se with that person, but I couldn't knock him for saying that, because like you, I understand the tax laws to a good extent in terms of being able to use it business-wise. And depreciation, the D word. That's what he knows how to use that to the T.
Yeah.
And that's one of his main things that he does is real estate investing.
Of course, and there's a lot of pushback on people saying, and I get it, right? It's, oh, you're un-American because you're not paying taxes. But the way to look at it, at least how I look at it, is in fact, you're more American by avoiding taxes legally because you're doing what the government wants you to do.
Exactly. That's it.
Right.
You're taking a chance. Right?
Exactly. You're employing people.
You're risking. So it's easy to say if you're not out there the ones putting yourself on the line necessarily, because that's what it benefits. It benefits you because you took that risk. You took that chance. You deployed that capital and kept your fingers crossed that it was going to work out for you. So you should be, so that's why the laws are written that way, because you took the risk. So, if there was no benefit, then no one would do it. They would just be an employee. Like if there was no benefit to, going out and trying to stake your claim, then why do it, right?
Absolutely.
So, and another thing as far as taxes is a way to offset that is if you're an employer and say you're is also utilizing 401k. So if you are putting money into your employees' 401k, that offsets your income, and then if you're able to also put into your own. So it's, let's say you're an owner of a company and you're also an employee of that company, you can contribute as an employer to your employees' 401k, offset your corporate taxes, and then you get the benefit of getting those taxes, getting that money into a 401k. It's like 20-some%.
Exactly, and you see all that is for the B's and I's, right? The E's and S's.
Even mileage. So, if you use your personal car for mileage, you get like 58 cents a mile.
Yeah.
Well, if you pay for that personally, okay, and you're a business owner, you pay for that personally, you can get reimbursed by your company. So your company strikes a check to you as an employee for $5,000. That's tax free. Plus, you get the write-off as the owner of, you had to reimburse your employee for their gas for that year. So you get the double dip, right? So just little things like that.
Exactly.
And on top of what he's saying as far as you're taking the risks and so forth, but deeper than that, getting back to the American way and how America counts success, they count jobs, the number of job creations you make, because generally when you're that business owner, you're creating jobs. Generally when you're getting those greater tax benefits, it's because your business actually created other jobs. So we count jobs, we count houses. That's the real estate part. So the more houses you own, that's what they count when we're talking about the growth portion.
Absolutely. Yeah. So everything. Yes, Connor.
Real quick, as a business owner, what's your take on lending? Like if I needed to get a commercial lender, say I reached out to Holt and I needed $500,000, what's your take on that in terms of utilizing that capital to grow businesses and then offset taxes that are associated?
I think that's one of the next secrets. We'll get into that. You're jumping ahead. I love it.
Just a long car ride back from the
Next one. Look at this. Well, going off Connor's comment, the wealthy understand that using debt is a tool. So they actually borrow to invest and grow businesses. So, for example, let me, and actually when they do this, they also receive a tax deduction. So, for example, let's say I could borrow from, there's a bunch of lenders here, but I borrow money for 4%, and then I take that, let's say it's $1 million, I go invest in something that earns me 10%. So I'm not using any of my own money, but I'm still netting $60,000 a year because I'm paying $40,000 in interest, but I'm making $100,000 in the investment which I invested in. So the wealthy understand this. They don't use much of their own money, even if they do, because they get the tax write-off, or they get deduction immediately just from the interest, but they can also scale and grow their business. So it's encouraged if you know what you're doing, but don't do it if you don't know. And they don't borrow to go on vacations or buy luxury items. This is very important. People don't just borrow money because you can. Borrow if you know you're going to invest it in either your business or into some other investments. And here's something that a lot of people misunderstand. Debt is actually your friend during inflationary periods. Again, for my podcast, for those who do listen, think of this. If I borrow $100 from you, Tinny, and I promise to pay you back next year, now that $100 because of inflation is only worth about $93 in a year, assuming 7% inflation, right? So I benefited because I got to use that 100 right now. I probably borrowed it and then I probably invested in something. But Tinny, when I promise to pay him back, he's getting something that's only worth $93 in purchasing power terms. So as long as the interest rate is less than the inflation rate, just by holding debt, you're benefiting just from purchasing power. I'm not saying you should do that, but this is one of the secrets as well. You can borrow money, and just by holding it, as long as the interest rate is less than inflation rate, you're going to come out ahead in the next few years. Of course, it's not exactly, but usually you borrow that money to invest it, so you actually get a little bit more yield. Yeah. So takeaway: the wealthy utilize debt to build substantial. Oh no, turned off. To build substantial wealth. Let me try this. 1 second. Substantial wealth. All right, secret number 8. The wealthy invest in education. Similar to what you guys are doing right here. I love it. And we're not talking about traditional education. We're not necessarily talking about master's degrees or even undergrad degrees. What I'm talking about is they invest in seminars, books, workshops, and courses. And let's look at a $20 investment in a book, right? If you read the right books, it can help change your mindset. And again, your actual wealth will always gravitate towards your mindset wealth. Now with this 20, and so if that happens, based on the book and based on the courses, based on the people you surround yourself with, this can translate to $100,000, $1 million, even $10 million of actual wealth in your future. Just because you're able to change your mindset, you start understanding how money works, how to surround yourself with the right people. So when I talk about investing in education, that's what I'm talking about. The takeaway: the wealthy invest aggressively on education.
It was interesting over the weekend. We were in a group. How many people were reading that same book? So there's a lot of salespeople around, and 4 people were reading the same book, and it all said we're reading it over and over and over again. It was, wow, this, so yeah, you see that in people. So
Absolutely, no, that's definitely right. And it was a little book of
Little Red Book is Selling by
I forgot the name. Yeah, it's a good book. It's on Audible, but yeah,
I'll start.
they're actually based here in Charlotte too.
Yeah,
The author, which is
it's really good.
oh yeah. And the last secret, which I'm going to share with y'all today, is the wealthy are master networkers. They give, they expect nothing in return. They love connecting others to each other, and they end up getting more than they gave. Does anyone know any business groups here in Charlotte? Sign up if you're not already. But all right, so now those were. I'm sure there's a million more secrets. These are just first ones that came to my mind. So we're going to talk about actionable steps you guys can take. All right. Number 1, we're going to talk about defense. It's again not something I'm a fan of, but this is. I think there's a way around this. So make a list of all your expenses and figure out which areas to cut down on. And this is not at all fun, but the reason why we're doing this is think of going to the gym before you start working out, right? You need to weigh yourself. You need to figure out what you're eating. Like you need to see where you currently are before you can even figure out what your goals are. And so just by creating this list, you're like, okay, yeah, I look like this financially. I want to become this, but at least now you know what your starting point is, and that's why it's so important. But very important thing, don't cut expenses which give you genuine value. So let's say you love going out to eat because that's the only time you and your significant other can get together, or that's the only time you can get together with friends, right? And you genuinely enjoy it, don't cut it out. But if you go out just because people casually invite you and you don't really get benefit, then start cutting it out. Same thing with vacations. If you're like, I need this, I actually get genuine value from it, don't cut it out. But if you're like, I'm just doing it, I actually feel more stressed because of all the money I'm paying, then you should cut it out, right? So it's all about being intentional about your spending and only cut out on things which don't give you genuine value. This way you can cut off all the fat and still enjoy a good quality of life. And again, I'd say focus on big ticket items, figure out where you could cut out on. Not your daily coffee. Spending $5 every day, yeah, in the long run it does make kind of a difference, but it's not going to make you, if it gives you genuine value, don't cut it out. Instead, focus on cutting down on taxes, which we talked about on the B and I quadrant, housing, transportation, and food. And of course, don't forget to check your subscriptions. I know we all have those, and they just keep billing you, right? And like going back to the housing part, if you, again, get genuine value of spending $3,000 a month on rent or your mortgage, keep it, but make sure you're actually getting it. If you could lower that to maybe $2,000, imagine what you could do with that extra $1,000. You can go on that vacation which you wanted to, right? That's $12,000 a year that you're saving. You can do something more which gives you more value. So it's all about living life, kind of optimizing your money and how you can enjoy it. So that's actionable step number 1, and we're going to spend a few slides on actionable step 2, offense, because that's where I'm passionate about, because defense you can only do so much, right? Offense is, I enjoy it. It's when you're actually scoring. So you can become an I while you're still employed. So here's a cash flow pattern of most employees. Income from a job, you pay your taxes, and then you have after-tax income. Now this money goes into your bank account. Now what I'm about to tell you, this is so important to understand this, because if you don't get this, you could still become successful, it's just going to be slightly harder or significantly harder. Now, with your money from your bank account, the first thing you want to do is to buy investments. Before you pay utilities, before you pay rent, before you pay car payments, before you pay credit cards, before you pay anything, you take a certain amount of money, you buy investments immediately. This is only for a psychological reason. The reason is, let's say you get $1,000. If you don't do this, you're going to spend $1,000. However, if you take $200 of that, invest it, and we'll talk about what to invest in, the other $800 you're free to spend without worrying about it. And this is what I'm talking about when it comes to budgeting. I hate budgeting because I don't do it. Instead, I follow this. The money I make, I take a certain amount, I put it into investments before I pay any expenses, and I'm like, cool, I have $500 left for whatever I want to do. Right? So this way you don't have to worry about it, but you will find a way to cut down on expenses, and you don't have any guilt when you go out, spend $100 on dinner, because you're like, because I'm investing so much, right? You don't even have to worry about it. So you could have a better quality of life, and you'll be kind of on a budget, but it doesn't really matter because, yeah, Connor, you're saying something?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say I love flowcharts. This is a great job. In technology, you got to break down complex things.
Yeah.
Flowcharts are my jam. So.
I love it. Thank you. So you want to buy investments first. After you do that, from your bank account, then you can pay for all your expenses. But again, this is so important. Investments first, pay for everything next. Now these investments that you have, and we'll talk about what they are in just a bit, they will produce income. Now with this income, you go back, you buy more investments, and so now your investments are growing. This is your asset pile, if you remember from a few secrets back. Your assets are growing more and more because income from your job and income from your investments, both of them going in. Now these investments are going to grow so much that the income from the investments you can actually start putting into your bank account. And so now you're getting income from your investments and your job, at which point you can actually just leave your job if you're making enough money, because you're like, I don't need this. But if you love your job, definitely keep it, right? It just gives you that opportunity to, oh, no, we're going through a recession. I lost my job. It doesn't matter because your investments are letting you survive for maybe not forever, but at least for the next few years. So now after you leave your job, still with your after-tax investments, continue buying investments, and then you pay your bank account second. And then from there, keep the same habits. You make $1,000 from your investments, take $200, pump it back into investments, and then you spend the other $800. I'm just using arbitrary numbers, right? You just scale it up by a couple zeros if you want. And this is why the wealthy can buy yachts, not care, because all of it's fueled by investments in their businesses or other type of investments, and not their actual earned income.
Well, they bought the yacht as a for their business.
Oh, of course. Yeah. I mean, it's a client expense. Yeah, you get it. Yeah. No, exactly. All right. So now, what do I invest in, VJ? You talk about investments a lot. Let's talk about stocks. So even though my professional background is investment management, I don't know how to pick stocks. And so the cool thing is there's something called index funds. And does anyone know what index funds are? Connor does. Okay. Well, I'll talk about it. So index funds are, think of the S&P 500. It's 500 of the largest publicly traded companies in the US. And so if you invest $100 into the S&P 500 index fund, you get exposure to 500 of the largest companies. And it doesn't matter if one goes bankrupt because you still have exposure to 499 more, right? And so this way, the only way you can lose all $100 that you invested is if all 500 companies go to zero, which at that point, we have bigger things to worry about, right? And so it's a fairly safe investment for long term. Yeah, in the short term, it is going to dip. And so don't put your money in there if you need the money the next 3 years. But if you're going to be investing for the long run, which you should be, it's a great place to get started. Just throw your money into the S&P 500, walk away for a few decades, you'll come back a millionaire. And I'm not even joking. That's literally how the math works. And so it does take a little bit longer to achieve financial independence when you do that, just because it is more passive, but significantly more passive. So there's wins and there's advantages and disadvantages there. Another one which I'm a fan of, and it's what I did, was real estate. It's a lot faster to achieve financial independence. A lot more tax benefits because each house or each apartment complex is a business, so you still get to be in that B&I quadrant. You get depreciation, the D word, which we talked about earlier. There is a little bit more upfront work, as in you have to learn a lot more because there's a lot more that goes into it, and there's a little bit more maintenance work. But how many times do you really have to learn everything for the first time, right? Once.
Well,
so
that, what I do, and I've invested in real estate for the past 30 years now, I have an accountant.
Yeah.
Because they're going to give you a return on investment with knowing how to use depreciation and keep you updated on the latest tax laws.
Absolutely. So what I'd recommend is starting with stocks, and then if you're interested, getting into real estate. The reason is getting invested into the stock market takes literally 10 minutes if you've never started. And on the next slide, I'll show you exactly what to do. But it's get started, 10 minutes, build a good financial habit, start putting money away. And then if you're interested in real estate or some other business, just because you have those good financial habits of taking money away and investing it, you can just copy and paste, apply it into a different asset class, such as real estate or into your own business. So here we have something called the comfort versus profitability spectrum. All right, on the left side, we have comfort, low risk, low reward. And then on the right side, we have profitability, which is higher risk, higher reward. So we have cash, bonds here, and then starting a business on the right side. And then real estate and stocks are somewhere in between. Now, even though cash and bonds seem like it's safe, it's actually fake comfort because we talked about inflation. The more money you keep just sitting there, it's losing value every single day. It's the worst. You don't want to be holding on to too much cash. You need to have cash for short-term usability, right? Paying for rent, or about 6 months to a year of cash just for living expenses. Every dollar more than that, start investing. And if you have a big purchase coming up, yeah, definitely set aside cash, but it's so bad when you have too much cash. You might think it's safe, but it's actually the most dangerous thing you can do for your wealth. So you want to aim to be right here. You want to start investing in real estate, stocks, or get into starting a business, or you could be partners with someone who does the business. You can do something else, right? So this is very vague, but you don't want to be in cash and bonds more than you need to be. And then I think this is the last part of the actionable steps, getting started with a Roth IRA. So a Roth IRA is a retirement account which you can create by yourself. Again, takes 10 minutes. This is all where I'm referencing to. You can open it up yourself for free. And again, I'm not selling anything. I don't get any commission. I'm not even doing it. So the disclaimer was for real. So don't be like, oh, when's a pitch coming? I'm not. So you can use Fidelity, E-Trade, or Vanguard, or a bunch of other providers. Go on their website, and you just click a button that says Open Roth IRA. Just follow the steps. And then you contribute after-tax dollars. So if you earn less than $139,000 a year or so, you can contribute up to $6,000. If you earn more than that, there's ways around it, but usually it's meant for people earning less than that. And the cool thing is that all your investments grow tax-free. So if you invest money anytime you get dividends or interest or capital gains, you don't pay any taxes on that. So as long as it's in the account, you don't pay any taxes. And then when you withdraw it after the age of 59 and a half, you don't have to pay any tax on the withdrawals either, since you've already paid taxes before you put it in. So it's actually a really solid growth vehicle, in my opinion. I mean, I highly recommend if you're able to contribute to it. And then after you fund the account, you can invest in stocks. So think of it like a bank account, right? You put in cash, but after you put in cash, is this going to be sitting there? You need to actually take it and invest it. And some place you can invest are 2 index funds. If you use Fidelity, FZROX, and if you use Vanguard, VTSAX, these are total stock market index funds. So if you put in money here, you own literally every single company in the US. And is this a great way to diversify? If you're like, I don't want to pick stocks, let me just buy every company. It's a great place to start. And then again, it's about building habits. As you get more and more experience, you could start picking individual companies or doing more speculative investments. But right now it's about safety, preservation, and growth all together in the best, easiest way possible so you guys can focus on your lives. And the last actionable step, connect with me. Thank you so much.
BJ, thank you for coming out and giving a great presentation.
Of course.
Guys, these are just the first steps, in my opinion, to get started toward financial literacy. Really what BJ does to give you a little bit more insight, he deals with a specific type of stock trading and options trading, and primarily deals with amounts greater than $200,000 in individuals with a minimum net worth of $2 million. So love what he's doing here. Second round of applause for BJ, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Appreciate it.
So guys, this is the first of our speaker series here at Charlotte Business Group Lake Norman. We'll be sending out a survey to each of your emails afterward to kind of see how we did, kind of gain some feedback and see what suggestions you guys might have for future speakers. If any of you want to speak here in the future and talk about some level of expertise that you have in any field of personal or business growth, feel free to reach out to me. But again, thanks for coming. Feel free to network here afterward, but I appreciate all of you. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Connor.
Yeah.